The water was my confession. Every evening, I'd slip into the cool, chlorinated embrace of the community pool and pour my loneliness into the lanes. Back and forth, a metronome of limbs and lungs, pushing my body until my mind went quiet. It was a ritual of erasure. I swam to forget the silence of my apartment, the empty space on the other side of the bed, the gnawing sense that my life was a collection of carefully managed routines designed to keep me from noticing how little I was actually living. And every evening, he was there. Caleb. He was the head lifeguard, a title that seemed both too formal and not nearly grand enough for the way he occupied his space. He didn't just sit in the tall white chair. He presided over the chaos of splashing children and gossiping parents with a kind of quiet, unshakable authority. He was an island of calm in a sea of summer noise. I told myself my fascination was purely aesthetic. It was an appreciation for the efficient poetry of his movements, the easy, long-limbed way he walked the concrete deck, the sharp, economic turn of his head at a sudden shout, the way the sun caught the gold flecks in his short brown hair. I told myself a lot of things. My lane was the one farthest from his chair, a deliberate choice. It gave me the perfect vantage point for observation without being obvious. From there, I could watch him under the guise of catching my breath between laps. I saw the way his shoulders, broad and tanned from a summer spent under the relentless Texas sun, would tense slightly when a kid ventured too close to the deep end. I saw the ghost of a smile that touched his lips when the gaggle of teenage girls who worshipped him tried a new, elaborate flirting tactic. He was patient with them, a gentle but firm wall they could never breach. He was patient with everyone. He was, by all accounts, impossibly, achingly straight. He talked about his truck, about fishing trips with his dad, about some girl named Jess who had gone off to college in another state. He was a constellation of classic masculinity, and I was just an astronomer, charting a star I could never hope to reach. So I swam. I channeled all that hopeless, quiet yearning into my strokes, slicing through the water as if I could outrun the feeling. Then the sign went up, taped to the glass door of the check-in office. A block-lettered announcement in stark black marker. Pool closes for the season, Friday, August 26th. 1 week. The words hit me with a physical weight, like a cramp in my side. Suddenly, my ritual felt less like a comfort and more like a countdown. 7 more days to watch him. 7 more days to fill my head with the scent of chlorine and sunscreen that I had come to associate with him. 7 more days of this silent, one-sided relationship before he packed up his whistle and his faded red shorts and disappeared from my life, probably forever. The thought left a hollow space in my chest, a void the water couldn't fill. My laps felt different that evening, each one a grain of sand slipping through the hourglass. That night, I watched him more intently than ever. He wasn't just a physical presence anymore. He was a phenomenon I was trying to memorize. The precise angle of his jaw when he scanned the water, the casual way he rested his arm over the back of the chair, the low, steady timbre of his voice carrying over the splash and chatter. No running, he'd call out, not with anger, but with a simple, incontrovertible finality that made even the most rebellious kid skid to a halt. His gaze was the thing that held me captive. It was steady, unreadable, and seemed to see everything. Sometimes, I'd feel it on me as I rested at the wall, and my heart would perform a frantic, stuttering flip. I'd duck my head, pretending to adjust my goggles, my face hot, certain he could read the ridiculous, sprawling crush written all over me. But when I'd risk a glance back, he'd be looking somewhere else, his expression as placid as the water's surface after closing. The next day, a Tuesday, I stayed later than usual. I was chasing a feeling, trying to hold on to the dwindling light, the familiar sounds, the sight of him. I was the last swimmer in the pool, a fact I was acutely aware of. My arms were burning, my lungs aching, but I kept going, pushing off the wall again and again. The sky had deepened to a bruised purple, and the powerful overhead lights hummed to life, casting wobbling reflections on the water. "All right, Leo, time to call it a night." His voice, closer than I expected, startled me. I stopped mid-stroke, treading water and pushing my wet hair back from my forehead. He was standing at the edge of the pool, no longer in his chair, a rolled-up towel slung over his shoulder. He wasn't looking at me with impatience, just a kind of quiet observation. "Sorry, I mumbled, my voice hoarse. Lost track of time. You do that a lot, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a statement of fact. He crouched down, the worn fabric of his shorts stretching over his thighs. You swim like you're trying to get somewhere. My heart hammered against my ribs. He saw me. He actually noticed my swimming, not just as a body in the water, but as a person with intent. Just trying to clear my head, I said, the words feeling thin and inadequate. He nodded slowly, his eyes holding mine. Well, your head's clear. Pool's closed, he offered a hand down to me. This was new. I usually heaved myself out, a slick and graceless maneuver I performed when I was sure no one was watching. But his hand was there, open and waiting. Hesitantly, I reached up. His grip was firm, warm, and calloused. He pulled me from the water with an ease that made me feel weightless. For a split second, as I found my footing on the wet concrete, his hand remained on my arm, his thumb resting just on the inside of my elbow. It was a fleeting touch, probably meaningless, but it sent a jolt straight through me, a spark on my water-chilled skin. See you tomorrow, Leo, he said, turning to start his closing duties. Yeah, see you, I whispered to his retreating back. I spent the entire walk home dissecting that single touch. It was nothing. A simple act of assistance. A courtesy. Lifeguards help people. That was their job. But my mind, a frantic and hopeful traitor, refused to be rational. It replayed the moment in excruciating slow motion. The texture of his skin against mine, the brief, firm pressure of his thumb, the way he held my gaze for a fraction of a second too long. Or had I imagined that part? Was I so starved for connection that I was manufacturing intimacy out of thin air? I was pathetic. I was a romantic novelist with an audience of one, writing entire chapters based on a misplaced comma. The next 2 days passed in a haze of heightened awareness. Every small interaction was magnified, every word imbued with a significance it almost certainly didn't possess. On Wednesday, my goggles snapped. I was fumbling with the broken strap at the edge of the pool when his shadow fell over me. Busted? He asked. I looked up. He was holding out a pair of sleek, dark-lensed goggles. Use these. We've got a lost and found box full of them. Oh, you don't have to. It's fine, he interrupted gently. Can't have my most dedicated customer swimming blind. My most dedicated customer. The phrase echoed in my ears. He handed them to me, and this time, our fingers brushed. Another jolt. Longer this time. Less accidental. I was sure of it. I looked up to thank him, but he was already walking away, calling out to a kid who was attempting a cannonball in the shallow end. I slipped on the goggles. They fit perfectly. For the rest of the evening, I saw the world through a darker, sharper lens, hyper-aware of his presence at the edge of my vision. He was watching me. I wasn't imagining it. I could feel the weight of his gaze on my back as I swam away from him, and on my face as I swam toward him. Thursday evening, the sky was a heavy, bruised gray. The air was thick and still, charged with the promise of a storm. People started packing up early, casting anxious glances at the clouds massing on the horizon. I, however, was determined to get my swim in. This was my second-to-last chance, and I wasn't going to let a little weather stop me. I was halfway through my routine when the first fat drops of rain began to fall, splattering on the surface of the water like scattered pebbles. A low rumble of thunder followed, and that was Caleb's cue. He blew a sharp, piercing blast on his whistle. Everyone out of the water. Pools closing early. Lightning in the area. A groan of disappointment rose from the few remaining kids, but parents were already gathering towels and bags, hurrying their children toward the gate. I swam to the edge, my swim cut short. The rain was coming down harder now, a steady, insistent drumming on the concrete. Within minutes, the pool deck was empty except for me and Caleb, who was methodically locking down the umbrellas and securing loose equipment. You really don't like to quit, do you? He said, jogging over to where I was shivering by the ladder. The rain was plastering his thin white t-shirt to his chest. I had a few more laps in me, I said with a weak smile. A brilliant fork of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. I flinched. Caleb didn't. He just grabbed my arm. Come on, let's get under the awning. He pulled me along, and we huddled under the bright red awning of the shuttered concession stand as the sky opened up. The rain fell in a solid, blinding sheet. turning the world outside our small shelter into a gray, roaring blur. The sound was immense, a constant, deafening roar that made conversation impossible. We just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching the deluge. The proximity was dizzying. I could smell the rain, the wet concrete, and underneath it all, his scent, chlorine and something else, something warm and uniquely him. I was acutely aware of the warmth of his arm pressed against mine, the water dripping from the tips of his hair onto his shoulders. The storm raged for what felt like an eternity. We were trapped in our little bubble of sound and shelter. After a while, the sheer force of the downpour lessened, replaced by a steady, gentler rain. The roar subsided to a loud hum. "Guess you're not driving home in this," he said, his voice low to be heard over the rain. "I walked," I admitted. "I only live a few blocks away." "Still, you'll be soaked." He looked at me, really looked at me. His usual unreadable expression was gone, replaced by something softer, more curious. "What do you actually do, Leo? Besides swim in perfect, relentless lines?" The question caught me off guard. It was the first personal thing he'd ever asked me. "I'm a graphic designer," I said, my voice feeling rusty. "I work from home. The swimming, it's how I get out of my own head. How I mark the end of the day." He nodded, his gaze dropping to the puddle forming at our feet. "I get that. This place is like that for me. Everything's simple here. The rules are clear. Keep people safe. Lock up at 9. Go home." He paused, kicking at a stray leaf with the toe of his sandal. "I'm not sure what I'm going to do when it's not simple anymore. After tomorrow." It was a crack in his stoic facade. A moment of vulnerability so unexpected it felt like a precious gift. He was worried about the future, just like me. He was more than the confident lifeguard, the suntanned god in the high chair. He was just a guy, standing in the rain, unsure of his next move. "You'll figure it out," I said, the words feeling clumsy but sincere. He looked over at me, a small, genuine smile finally reaching his eyes. Yeah, maybe the rain had almost stopped. A watery, late afternoon sun was breaking through the clouds. "I can give you a ride," he offered. "My truck's just over there. You don't have to. It's really not far." "I know," he said. "I want to." My heart did that stupid, frantic thing again. "I want to." Two simple words that held a world of possibility. I nodded, unable to speak. The ride was quiet, filled with the squeak of the windshield wipers and the low hum of the engine. He drove an old, slightly beat-up Ford Ranger, and the cab smelled of old coffee and fresh air. He didn't ask for directions. Of course, he knew where I lived. He'd seen me walk home every night for 3 months. The thought sent another thrill through me. He pulled up to my apartment building. I reached for the door handle, a litany of thanks on my lips, but he spoke first. "Hey," he said, cutting the engine. I left your book in the office. The one you were reading yesterday." I had. I'd been so flustered by the storm I'd completely forgotten it. "Oh, damn. Can I grab it tomorrow? Before you guys close for good?" "Yeah, of course," he said. "Come by around closing. It'll be quieter then." "Okay, I will. Thanks, Caleb, for the ride and everything." "Don't mention it." His eyes lingered on mine for a moment before I finally pushed the door open and escaped into the humid, post-storm air. I didn't look back as I walked to my door, but I felt his eyes on me the entire way. The next day, the last day, was torture. I couldn't focus on work. My mind was a chaotic swirl of the night before. His voice, his vulnerability, his offer of a ride, his eyes. The instruction to come by at closing felt deliberate, like an invitation. Or was I just turning a simple courtesy into a clandestine rendezvous? The day crawled by at a glacial pace. I arrived at the pool a few minutes before 9. The last of the families were trickling out, their chatter and laughter echoing in the cooling air. The sky was clear, streaked with the soft pinks and oranges of a fading sunset. Caleb was on the deck, talking to one of the other lifeguards. He saw me, and a small nod of acknowledgement passed between us. My stomach twisted itself into a nervous knot. I waited by the gate as he finished his duties, my hands shoved deep into my pockets. He locked the main gate, then walked toward me. He wasn't wearing his lifeguard shirt, just a plain gray t-shirt that clung to his shoulders. "Hey," he said. His voice was different in the quiet. Softer. "Hey," I replied, my own voice barely a whisper. "Book's in the office. Come on." I followed him. The pool deck was eerily silent without the usual soundtrack of splashing and shouting. The water was a perfect, still sheet of glass, reflecting the darkening sky. He unlocked the office, the jingle of his keys unnaturally loud. He flicked on a single desk lamp, casting a warm, isolated glow in the small room. My book was sitting on the corner of the desk. "There it is," he said, but he made no move to give it to me. He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms over his chest, effectively blocking the exit. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This was it. The air was thick with unspoken things, with the accumulated tension of an entire summer of stolen glances and near misses. "Gonna miss it?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "What?" I asked stupidly. "The pool," he clarified, but his eyes told me that wasn't what he was really asking. He was asking if I was going to miss this. Him. Us. This strange, silent dance we'd been doing. "Yeah," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I will." He just nodded, his gaze unwavering. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I felt completely exposed, as if he could see every secret, hopeful thought I'd ever had about him. He pushed off the doorframe and took a step closer. The room suddenly felt very, very small. "I have to do the final chemical check," he said. In the pump room, he held my gaze. "Come with me." It wasn't a question. It was a soft-spoken command, an invitation into the final, hidden corner of his world. My ability to think rationally had completely abandoned me. I just nodded, a single, jerky movement. He led the way out of the office and around to the back of the building, to a heavy metal door marked "Danger. Authorized personnel only." He unlocked it and pulled it open, revealing a small, windowless room. The air that washed over us was thick with the overwhelming, sterile scent of chlorine, and the space was filled with the deep, resonant hum of machinery. It felt like stepping into the heart of the pool itself. He went to a complex panel of pipes and gauges on the far wall, his back to me. I stood awkwardly by the door, my senses on high alert. The low, vibrating hum of the pumps seemed to resonate deep in my chest. I watched the sure, practiced way he moved, twisting a valve here, checking a reading there. He was completely at ease in this loud, mechanical space. I, on the other hand, felt like my entire nervous system was short-circuiting. He finished his checks and turned around. The room was so small that only a few feet separated us. The humming of the pumps seemed to grow louder, filling the silence between us. He didn't move to leave. He just stood there, watching me, his expression intense, searching. My breath hitched. This is it. The moment contracts. All the air is gone from the room. My thoughts are just a frantic buzz, a high-frequency whine underneath the thrum of the pumps. He takes a step, then another. He stops directly in front of me, so close I can feel the warmth radiating from his body. I have to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. They're darker in the dim light, deep and unreadable. "I closed up early," he says, his voice a low vibration that I feel more than hear. "Tonight," he swallows, a small, audible sound in the mechanical drone. "For us." My world tilts on its axis. "For us." He said it. He admitted it. This thing between us, this fragile, unspoken tension I thought I had imagined, it was real. He felt it, too. I can't speak. I can't breathe. I can only look at him, my heart threatening to beat its way out of my chest. He reaches out, his hand hovering for a second before his fingers gently touch my jaw. His thumb strokes my skin, a slow, deliberate movement that sends a shiver down my spine. "Come on," he whispers, his hand dropping to take mine. His fingers lace through my own, a firm, possessive grip. He leads me out of the humming darkness of the pump room and back into the cool night air. He doesn't let go of my hand. He leads me to the edge of the deep end, where the water is a dark, placid mirror reflecting a smattering of stars. The big overhead lights are off now, and the only illumination comes from the soft, blue underwater lights, casting an ethereal glow. "Sit," he says, his voice gentle. He gestures to the stainless steel ladder. Numbly, I do as he says. I sit on the second step of the ladder, the cool water swirling around my calves. My jeans are getting wet, but I don't care. Nothing seems to matter except the man standing in front of me. Instead of sitting beside me, Caleb slips off his sandals and, without a moment's hesitation, steps into the pool. The water comes up to his waist. He wades closer until he's standing between my knees, the blue light illuminating him from below, making him look like something out of a dream. I feel a nervous tremor run through me, and I instinctively dip my face to the surface, splashing cool water onto my skin to ground myself. I come up, blinking, water dripping from my chin. Caleb lifts a hand, his expression impossibly soft. He catches a drop of water on his fingertip as it falls from my lower lip. "You taste like the pool," he murmurs. His voice is thick with a feeling I can't dare to name. Then he leans in. He closes the small distance between us, and his lips meet mine. It isn't a hard, demanding kiss. It's soft. It's questioning. It's a discovery. His lips are warm and taste faintly of salt and summer. He kisses the water from my lips, a gentle, searching pressure that makes my entire body light up. I let out a shaky breath, and my hands, of their own accord, come up to rest on his wet shoulders. He deepens the kiss, one hand coming to cup the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my damp hair. It's a kiss that tastes of chlorine and longing, of unspoken confessions and the dizzying, terrifying relief of reciprocation. All the tension of the past 3 months, all the silent pining and hopeless yearning, melts away in that single, perfect moment. It isn't rushed. It isn't frantic. It feels right. Like I'd been swimming in endless lines my whole life, and I'd finally reached the shore. When he pulls back, it's only an inch. Our foreheads rest together. His eyes are closed. His breathing is unsteady as mine. The only sounds are the gentle lapping of the water against the sides of the pool and the frantic drumming of my own heart. The silence that follows is heavy, loaded. My mind, which had gone blissfully quiet, roars back to life with a vengeance. Panic, cold and sharp, begins to prickle at the edges of my relief. What just happened? What did this mean? He was straight. He had a girl, Jess. This was a mistake. A last day of summer impulse. He was going to pull away, laugh it off, and I would be left completely shattered. I start to pull back, my hands sliding from his shoulders, the fear of rejection a bitter taste in my mouth. His eyes snap open, and his hand on my neck tightens just enough to keep me there. "Don't," he says, his voice a low, rough plea. He sees the fear in my eyes, the doubt. He understands. "Leo, look at me." I force myself to meet his gaze. The blue light from the water dances in his eyes, and for the first time, they are completely, utterly readable. They are filled with the same terrifying vulnerability I feel. "I've wanted to do that all summer," he confesses, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every single night. Watching you swim. I kept the lights on later some nights, hoping you'd stay. I learned your schedule. I knew you walked home. I knew you read on your breaks. I watched you." The confession hangs in the air between us, a breathtaking, unbelievable truth. He wasn't the star I was charting from afar. He was the other astronomer, in his own observatory, looking right back at me. "But, Jess," the name comes out as a choked whisper. A shadow passes over his face. "Jess was a year ago. We broke up before she even left for school. It was easier to let people think what they wanted. It was easier than explaining." He shakes his head, a small, self-deprecating movement. "Nothing has been easy since you started showing up here every day at 5:30. Relief washes over me, so potent and overwhelming it almost brings me to my knees, if I weren't already sitting. It's real. This is real." The internal voice that had screamed warnings at me for months, the voice of my own insecurity, finally falls silent. It's drowned out by the sincerity in his eyes, by the solid warmth of his hand still holding mine. He stands up, the water sluicing from his clothes. The spell is broken, but not in a bad way. The dreamlike moment gives way to a clear, tangible reality. He stands on the deck, dripping, and holds out his hand to me. A repeat of the gesture from the other night, but this time it means so much more. It's not just helping me out of the pool. It's an invitation. "Let's get out of here," he says. I take his hand without hesitation. He pulls me to my feet, and we stand there for a moment, hands linked, at the edge of the silent, empty pool that had been the stage for our entire silent courtship. It feels like leaving a sacred place. We don't talk as we walk through the empty parking lot to his truck. The silence isn't awkward. It's comfortable, filled with the quiet hum of everything that has just happened. He opens my door for me before walking around to his side. Inside the cab, The familiar smell of old coffee is a strange comfort. He starts the engine but doesn't put the truck in gear. He just sits there, his hands on the steering wheel, looking straight ahead. Then, he reaches across the center console and takes my hand again, his fingers lacing through mine, resting them on the worn fabric of the seat between us. A soft, forgotten song plays quietly on the radio. It's a simple gesture, but it's the most intimate thing I've ever felt. It's a quiet declaration. We are a we. We hold hands now. As he finally pulls out of the parking lot, I turn and look back at the pool one last time. The blue underwater lights are a faint, lonely glow in the darkness. My summer sanctuary. My place of confession. For 3 months, I had come here to feel less alone, only to feel the acute loneliness of wanting the one person I thought I could never have. I had swum in straight, endless lines, a physical manifestation of my life, controlled, repetitive, and leading nowhere new. But Caleb was right. I was swimming like I was trying to get somewhere. I just never realized that my destination was sitting in a tall white chair, watching me the whole time. He wasn't an impossible star in a distant galaxy. He was just a man, a little lost himself, waiting for the storm to break. I turn away from the pool and look at him. His profile is outlined by the passing streetlights, his expression calm and focused on the road ahead. His thumb idly strokes the back of my hand. I no longer feel like an observer in my own life. I'm not on the outside looking in. I'm here, in this truck, with his hand holding mine, driving away from the place we met and toward a future I had never, ever allowed myself to imagine. The fear is gone, replaced by a quiet, steadying hope. It feels like I'd come home.